do when they don't go to work every day. Bob will give us some insight into with his speech, C2 H5 OH. Bob, great.
What I'm about to share with you today is illegal to do, and it's explosive. Good. And should you utilize this information, I would suggest you seek out someone that really knows what they're doing so you don't poison yourself. From the title of my speech, C2 H5 OH, you know what we're talking about today. Moonshine liquor.
Oh.
I'm going to show you how you can take things that are laying around your kitchen and make alcohol with just basic ingredients and things in your kitchen. Now, to make liquor, you start with a wash. And a wash is basically just the fermentation of sugar and yeast. So for whiskey, a lot of people use corn. The starch in the corn turns to sugar. For vodka, some people use potatoes. What I suggest for the home wall breaker is sugar and turbo yeast. Now, the way you do it is you just take a little fermenter. This is not my fermenter, but it was small to bring in. Always use food, one thing is you have to always use food quality buckets, so you don't poison yourself. What you do, take 3 pounds of sugar, dump it into the bucket, take some turbo yeast, dump it into the bucket, add water, put the lid on it, put the airlock inside, and then do whatever you do for 2 weeks. and that will become your wash. Now, this by itself, with turbo yeast, will be 20% alcohol, which is actually strong enough for a lot of things that you may want to make, and you don't have to really go through the distillation process. Then, 2 weeks later, you come back, and you take a pot. This here is our heat source from the stove. You take the pot, you put it on your heat source. Not so bad so far, right?
Right.
You take the wash and you pour it in the bucket. Then you take the bowl and you float it on the wash. It just sits right in there and floats. It's a buoyancy principle. Then you take the lid and you put the lid on upside down. Now it's very important that you get a tight seal. What some people do is they take dough, they use flour and water, and they put that around the top, and then they sit this on here. So you have a tight seal. Now one of the principles that we learned in elementary chemistry is what happens at 212 degrees. Water boils. It turns from a liquid to a gas. That principle is all you really need to know to make alcohol, because alcohol turns to a gas at 170 degrees. So it's very important that you get the liquid up to 170 degrees, no more. In the lid, you put ice. What happens is the alcohol turns into a gas. It hits the cold lid. Water seeks its lowest point, and it drips off this into the bowl that separates it from the wash. Now, you might say to yourself, what do you do with this alcohol? Well, I consider it my non-repellent. But there are a lot of different things that you can do with it. One of the things that I do is I take it, and one of the things I should tell you is that the purity and the taste of the alcohol would depend on what you use and how many times you run through this cycle. You can get it very, very pure. And that's the flammable part. And that's why you should be careful if you use an open flame. That's why you should use a heat source that's not open. Because when you take the bowl out and it's full of alcohol, it drips onto the open flame. Okay, that's not a very good process. One of the things that I do with it is, if I get a really high concentration of alcohol, is I cut it with distilled water and then I soak fruit in it. So some of the things I soak in it are cherries, peaches, strawberries, and then you can add sugar to get the particular flavor that you're looking for. Some other things that you can do with it is you can take aniseed, star aniseed, and you make anisette. You can take licorice root or elderberries and make things like sambuca out of it. If you use molasses and sugar cane, you can make rum. And if you want to spend a couple $100, you can get a fancy still, and then you don't have to do it with all your kitchen appliances. So I hope you now understand how to break the law at home. If you need any help with that, please give me a call.